Herodotus' story about Solon and Croesus tells us much about the Greek self-conception vis-a-vis the Persians. Solon was a greatly revered figure in Greek culture. He was a gifted statesman whom the Athenians entrusted to produce a written law code. Solon's laws made great reforms and were regarded as a landmark in political and legal history of the city. For centuries, his laws were publicly displayed in the Prytaneum. Herodotus explains that after creating his new law, Solon left Athens and traveled abroad. He went to Persia, where he was received at the court of King Croesus, who was the king of Lydia. Due to his work as a jurist and a statesman, Solon had gained a wide reputation for his intelligence and wisdom. Croesus welcomed him and treated him with the utmost respect and courtesy. Croesus was a powerful king with many conquests to his name. His great wealth has become proverbial. Wishing to be recognized as the happiest man alive, he addresses Solon as follows, quote, "We have heard a good deal about you, my guest from Athens. You have a reputation as a wise and well-traveled man, as a philosopher, indeed, one who has traveled the world and has always kept his eyes wide open. So here is the question I would like to put to you. Have you ever come across anyone whose state of contentment would rank head and shoulders above that of everyone else?" Having impressed Solon with his enormous wealth and power, Croesus is certain that the answer is a foregone conclusion. He is, however, surprised and even shocked when Solon names an obscure Athenian by the name of Tellus. When Croesus asks who is the second happiest, he's doubly upset when he is again overlooked, and Solon names the brothers Cleobus and Biton from Argos. When asked about the rationale for his choices, Solon explains that it's impossible to determine how happy one is until a person is dead. Given the contingencies of human happiness, things can change very quickly, and it's impossible to say if even the richest and most powerful person at any given moment will, in the end, be able to be counted as happy. The figures that Solon mentions led virtuous lives and died virtuous deaths, and so in their cases, an evaluation could be made. But this is not possible for people who are still living and are still subject to the vicissitudes of fortune. Croesus is outraged by this because the three men mentioned were, quote, men without rank or title, end quote. That is, men who had no power or influence. In Herodotus' portrayal, the Lydian king looks like a vain man, fixated on himself, but lacking any sense of virtue and deeper human values. By contrast, Solon lives up to his reputation as a sage, since he can see through the hollowness and fragility of mundane success. He knows that it can all change in a minute. He has a more profound sense of the simple virtues which are most important. Solon defies the king by saying, quote, "Great wealth is no more guaranteed to bring a man happiness than his daily subsistence." The key, then, is to have good fortune, which is entirely independent of how wealthy one is. This exchange highlights the differences between the worldviews of the Greeks and the Persians. Croesus appears as an arrogant despot, hoping to astonish and intimidate Solon with his wealth and power. But Solon displays great integrity, not succumbing to flattery or inauthenticity. He bravely speaks the truth, which reveals a reflective philosophical understanding of the world. These antithetical views capture in a nutshell the clash of civilizations that Herodotus means to describe in his work as a whole. Solon also shows an awareness of the difficulty of understanding the gods. Quote, "How jealous the gods are, and how perplexing in their ways. The longer the span of someone's existence, the more certain he is to see and suffer much that he would rather have been spared." This is a somewhat pessimistic tone, which is in agreement with the Mesopotamian worldview. He concludes, quote, "Human life is nothing if not subject to the vagaries of chance." It might strike one as odd that although the Greeks and the Persians had different religions, Herodotus speaks as if they were the same and can appeal to the gods without further ado. The reason for this is that since both the Greeks and the Persians were polytheists, He simply regards the Persian gods as the same as the Greek gods, only with different names. He has the same understanding of the Egyptian gods. Thus, he equates Horus with Apollo, Osiris with Dionysus, and Amun with Zeus. He thus assumes that the general characteristics of the individual gods are more or less the same and are therefore culturally transferable. In the examples of happy men that Solon gives, that is, Tellus, Cleobus, and Biton, he emphasizes the successful family life of them all. Tellus, quote, had handsome, upstanding sons, and he ended up a grandfather, with all his grandchildren making it to adulthood, end quote. Similarly, the young men, Cleobus and Biton, are held up as models of good sons. The importance of family is key for a happy life. This foreshadows the second half of the story, where Croesus unexpectedly comes to suffer due to a family tragedy. Herodotus takes on a moral tone in his description of this. Quote, after Solon's departure, the noose of a divine and terrible anger began to tighten around Croesus, and this was clearly because he had presumed himself the happiest of men, end quote. Now, the king's misfortune is thus interpreted as a result of his own moral shortcoming, a punishment by the gods for his presumption.